back to my channel. My name is Naomi Rook. If you're brand new to my channel, consider subscribing. If you like this video, give it a thumbs up. Also, make sure to ring that notification bell so you can be notified anytime I do upload a video. Today, what I'm going to do is I'm going to be ranking my newest eyeshadow palettes to my collection. Back in December, I really got into a kick of purchasing new eyeshadow palettes. I discovered a YouTuber. Her name is Beaute Bean. I absolutely love her videos, and she really opened my eyes to kind of the indie brand type eyeshadow palettes, not the mainstream, you know, the Anastasia, the Natasha, the Too Faced. I really learned about some new brands and some new eyeshadow palettes. So then I started following them on Instagram, and I just fell in love with a ton of different brands and all of their like aesthetic to their eyeshadow palettes. So I've tried a lot of new ones that I've never even heard of before. So what I thought I would do is I thought I would rank all of my recent purchased eyeshadow palettes from December. I do have 12 eyeshadow palettes I'm going to be ranking. I do enjoy all of these palettes, but I also do a lot of research before I purchase eyeshadow palettes just to see if I'm going to like it. And even if maybe the formula is not my absolute favorite, I love the color story, and I will normally keep an eyeshadow palette around if I really enjoy the color story, even if I have to work with the formula a little bit more. But I'm going to take all of these, I'm going to rank them from my least favorite to my absolutely most favorite, and I thought this would be kind of fun just to sit around, talk about some eyeshadow palettes. I'll do maybe a little bit of swatches of my favorite colors and show you some of the looks that I created with these palettes. So if you'd like to see how I rank my recent eyeshadow purchases, just keep watching. Number 12, my least favorite of all of them, but I do really enjoy this palette still, is the Makeup Revolution. This is the Reloaded Division. So this is the dupe of the Anastasia Subculture palette. I love the color story. It is really incredible. I enjoyed the Subculture palette as well, but the formula wasn't great, so I did want to try this. This palette does perform really well. The mattes are incredibly blendable and creamy, really nice. The metallics are a little lackluster, but they also were lackluster in the Anastasia palette. So I really do enjoy this. I've used it quite often. If I'm trying to get a look using these colors, this is the one I go to, and I will always keep this around. It works good enough, but it's not the best palette that I own. It is a really cool color story, but I definitely have others I like more. At number 11, I have the Beaute Nostagia palette. This color story is gorgeous. It's kind of like a rainbow palette, but it's definitely very summer, spring vibes. I really do enjoy this palette a lot. Beaute does not have my absolute most favorite formula. They're a little chalky, the mattes, and then the metallics are a little chunky, so it's not my absolute most favorite. I can get a really beautiful look using this palette. I do believe I got this in a BoxyCharm, but I do really enjoy the color story, and if I'm looking for a really bright, vivid summer look, I'm definitely going to go to this palette because the pigment and the payoff is really incredible for this palette. Number 10 is another palette that I got in my BoxyCharm. It's actually really surprising. I had never heard of this palette ever before. So this is the Barbarella palette from Beauty London. This is a very neutral, everyday type palette. I looked at this when I first got my BoxyCharm. I'm like, oh, I'm not gonna like it. It's kind of boring. There's something about these shadows that are really incredible. The payoff is beautiful. This palette definitely has a lot of overlying type colors. So there's a lot. These all kind of look just about the same. But what's really cool is that they do have different formulas. So there's very sheer, there's very metallic, creamy, kind of thicker shadows, even though they're the same color. So what I like to do is I like to just kind of layer them. I'll put them more thicker metallic on the bottom, a little bit of a sheeny sheer color on top. It is beautiful. These are so gorgeous. I thought I was going to declutter this when I opened it just because I thought it was kind of a boring palette, but the formula is really incredible. This one thing I really love about BoxyCharm is that I try brands that I wouldn't necessarily think to try. This is a really great palette. I would have never thought to try this type of palette, but this is a really great formula, and when it's on your eyes, the metallics and the sheen, it looks wet. It's so beautiful. I really enjoy this palette a lot. Coming in number 9 is the HipDot. This is the Cenote palette. I really love HipDot's formula. It's such a beautifully creamy, blendable formula. I love this color story. I enjoy blues and greens a lot. The only reason I put this down below is because it's not the most wearable. You only can get a few specific eye looks from it. I really love the formula, but it's not a super versatile palette. If you want blues or greens, you can go for this, but you can't get a huge variety of different looks just because there are just the blues, greens, a few neutrals, and that's all that is available in this palette. Number 8, so this is the See You Never Poppi Cosmetics. This one is definitely higher because it does have a lot more versatility. You can get a ton of different looks from this palette. You get really beautiful summer, spring looks, you can get neutral everyday looks. The only thing is I don't like this formula as much as I like the HipDot. I definitely like the HipDot formula more, but this has a better color story and is definitely more versatile. I can get some really beautiful pastel-y color. I definitely like the HipDot formula more than the Poppi Cosmetics formula, but this color story is really beautiful. Number 7 is going to be the Unicorn Cosmetics Wicked palette. This is such a cool, unique, really edgy type palette. I love the artwork on the front, and then inside it's such a unique, really cool layout. I love the double pans, they're so cool. I'm the type of person I'm never really going to hit pan on an eyeshadow palette. I have so many eyeshadow palettes. I don't really use one specifically for a really long time. I change it up between all of my palettes. I love that these are half pans because I have more options for eyeshadow. I can change things up a little bit more, and I love all these murky colors, the darkness. I love the depth of this palette. Some palettes that I have don't go very deep, like the See You Never. There isn't a lot of darkness or depth in this palette. So if I'm looking for something very dark, deep, kind of smoky, kind of sultry, Halloweeny, or anything like that, this is the most incredible palette. I love it. I love the grays that come in the palette, and the metallics are really beautiful. They also do have different formulas. So there are sheer metallics, there are a little bit more heavy metallics that have a really huge impact on your lid. This is a really great versatile palette, and it's really inexpensive in comparison to how many colors you get in the palette. Number 6 is going to be my Black Moon Cosmetics Urban Myth. This palette is probably my favorite concept of all the eyeshadow palettes I own. I love the whole Urban Myth. I love anything Loch Ness Monster, aliens, anything like that I love. So I love the concept, I love the artwork, I love everything about this palette. The only reason I didn't rate it even higher is because it's not the most wearable eyeshadow palette. I can get some super cool, very unique, really out of the box type looks. I love it because it also does push me to try some color combinations that maybe I wouldn't really think to put together, but it's not the most wearable everyday type I can grab and easily get a look. This is definitely something that's more artistic, more creative. It takes me just a little bit more time to think of what I'm going to do. But the formula is incredible. I love the metallics. So there are 2 different types. So these 2 right here are more toppers. These ones have a little bit more glitter. This is a really intense metallic. But the mattes in this palette are really creamy. They're so easy to work with. They're very blendable. You can really pile on the different colors and keep it very unique looking. You can see every color on your lid. They mesh together very well. They don't get patchy. They don't get muddy. This is an incredible palette. The only reason I have it at number 6 is because it's just not the most wearable palette I own, but this is a really, really great one. Super cool. I love owning this one, and I've used it quite often. I'll have a picture of one of my absolute most favorite eyeshadow looks I've ever done, and it was with this palette. It's super cool, very unique. Number 5 is my Nikkie X Beauty Bay palette. I really love the concept behind this palette as well. I think it's really cool. I do really like Nikkie tutorials. I think she's an incredible artist, and I was really excited to see this. In this palette, there is a huge variety of different looks you can create. I really love the versatility that this eyeshadow palette gives me. I love the blendability of the mattes. I will say half the mattes don't work as great as the other half. This palette creatively is just really easy to use. I can just jump into it, grab 3-4 colors, mix and match however I want. I can get a really cohesive eyeshadow look using this palette every single time. The metallics in here are so creamy and so beautiful on the lid. They feel like almost like a cream to powder, but they just look wet on the eyelids. I love the metallics in this palette. The mattes are hit and miss, which is the only downfall of this palette, is that some of the blues and the more bright colors don't really blend all that well. The reason I put this eyeshadow palette at number 5 is because it has such a great versatility. It's really easy to use, and the metallics are absolutely gorgeous. The newest eyeshadow palette to my collection is the Made by Mitchell Feet on the Ground palette. I love this. So this is in number 4 because I have not been able to use it a ton. Just the colors in this palette are so beautiful. The artwork on this palette is so gorgeous. If I was an eyeshadow palette, I would be this. But to be fair, I haven't used this a ton. I've only done about 3 looks with it, so that is why I didn't rate it higher. But this is so gorgeous, and so far what I've used out of it has been really incredible, super blendable, super creamy, and worked really well together. I've gotten some really cool looks using this palette. Number 3 was quite a shock of an eyeshadow palette. So this is the OPV Beauty Tropical Dreams eyeshadow palette. This is the same kind of color story of the blues, the greens, the really beautiful metallics. I love this eyeshadow palette so much. This color here, and this color here, and this color here, that one. These are some of my most used colors for my eyeshadow. I love this. I have about 4 or 5 eyeshadow looks on my Instagram. I will leave that linked down below if you'd like to check those out. Every single one I've ever done using this palette has turned out so great. The metallics are very thick, but they are so impactful when you put them on the lid. They're not sheer at all. The mattes blend so well. They're, for being blues and greens, normally those are a little more difficult to blend, but they are so creamy in formula. They blend together incredibly. I love this eyeshadow palette. I've used it a ton, and I will continue to enjoy using it through the spring and summer. Number 2 is one of the best collabs that came out this past year. This is the Sydney Grace x Mel Thompson eyeshadow palette. This is such a beautiful, wearable, everyday eyeshadow palette. I love this. I really like Mel Thompson. I like the Sydney Grace formula. This is the first time I ever tried that. This is such a great, everyday, wearable, beautiful eyeshadow palette. If I were to go on vacation or go do something, this is a palette I would take just because it has anything I could need. It has smokier, darker colors. It has really beautiful neutrals. It leans on the more neutral to cool tone side, which I love. I'm not a huge warm tone eyeshadow person. I love the color combination. I love the pop of green, the pop of pink, the yellow. This is an incredible palette, definitely a wonderful collaboration. Sydney Grace has an incredible formula, and I really enjoy Mel Thompson. I'm so glad I was able to purchase this. I know it's hard to get because when they restock it, it sells out almost instantly, but it is such a great, incredible formula and incredible palette. I love the concept, and I think the artwork on the front is really cool also. And in the number 1 place, I shouldn't mention this one because it's not available anymore, and I am so sorry. I hope you didn't miss this. I hope I talked enough about this palette. But this is the BH Cosmetics Naughty palette. This was a holiday limited edition collection, which I'm so sorry again for mentioning it, but this palette is one of my all-time favorite palettes. It's such a cool and unique color story. I love the versatility of this palette. I'm not a huge big palette person because I find in a lot of big palettes that they have a lot of overlapping colors, which I'm not a huge fan of. I don't want to spend my money to buy 3 of the exact same colored shadows. Such unique colors in it. There's no overlap whatsoever, and even if there's a tiny bit of overlap, it's a different formula, so it's alright with me. I really hope BH Cosmetics continue to come out with palettes like this. The metallics are incredible. The mattes are super pigmented. This palette brings me the most joy when I pull it out. Even though that this is a limited edition holiday collection, I do not see it as just a holiday palette. I can get any type of look any time of year using this palette. The formula is incredible. The colors are fantastic. I love this palette so much. I'm sorry if you didn't get your hands on this palette, but I would definitely say keep your eyes on BH Cosmetics. If they continue to bring out palettes with this formula, with these type of color stories, I would say grab it. They are incredible, and I'm really glad that I did purchase this, and hopefully you did too. So there's all my ranked eyeshadow palettes. I hope you enjoyed this video. I love eyeshadow palettes. They're one of my favorite makeup products ever, and I've really been enjoying trying out these new formulas, these new brands, and I will continue to do so through the rest of the year. Thank you so much for watching this video, and I'll catch you on the next one. Bye guys.